All right, guys. Yesterday we learned a little bit about how to work with math operators, okay, including modulus, which was brand new. I'm thinking that I should have put that in a new project, so we're going to go ahead and do that right now. We're going to right-click over here in this little space and make a new Java project. Bam. And I'm going to call that Java project Math and Logic. Finish. And now we're going to have a new project for Math and Logic. And I'm going to take my Using Math Operations class that we wrote yesterday and just slide it right up there. I'm just going to drag it and drop it in that SRC folder. So there it is. And what we're going to do today is look at the problems that I gave you guys yesterday from math operations, okay? Sum and average, magic numbers, harmonic mean, count my money, similar triangles, Julian day number, okay? And then yours is a little bit different there. So, but we're going to look at together number 1 and number 3, sum and average, and then harmonic mean. So, this one right here says assign 4 3-digit numbers to 4 different variables, then have the computer sum them and store the sum in a 5th variable, compute the average and store the answer in a 6th variable, print out the results, use these numbers for your test data, and then this is what your sample output should be. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started with that. We're going to create a new class for this called SumAndAverage. So we're just going to use that name for our class name. So I'm going to go over here and make a new class, call it SumAndAverage. I want that to have a main method, so I'm going to click the box for that and then click Finish. And here's where we're at. Okay. The first thing it says here is assign 4 3-digit numbers to 4 different variables. So I'm over here, I'm going to make 4 different variables. I'm going to go int A, B, C, and D. Okay? And then it tells me to assign those values variables particular values, right? So right here it tells me to use these numbers so that we can test it. Okay? So 475 is the first one. That's going to be A equal to 475. And then you guys have the sheet in front of you. So what does B equal? 821. C equals 369. And D equals 5 what? 62. All right, sweet. Then it says, have the computer sum them and store the sum in a 5th variable. All right, well, here we go. So we're going to go int sum equals, and then we're going to go a plus. Now, you don't have to put these extra spaces in there like I do. I just put those extra spaces to make it easier for you to read. All right, you don't have to have them in there. And then we're going to print out that sum. So this thing says it's supposed to say the sum of the 4 numbers is, and then we're going to tack on the sum value by doing plus sum. All right. So let me go ahead and run this. And it says the sum of the 4 numbers is 2,227, which is what I wanted it to be. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to try to figure out the average and print out the average like we just did for the sum. Okay. All right, so let's talk about this. What I see most people doing here is going int average equals, and then some of you did some smart stuff here. Okay, let's just say that you went ahead and said, all right, I got to find the sum of A, B, and C, and D, and then take that and divide it by 4. And then we're going to do something like system.out.println, the average of the 4 numbers is an n plus AVG, kind of like what we did for the sum. Okay. And so if we run that, we get the same sum that we got before, but now we get an average of 556. Okay, so let's go ahead and check that against this. We should get 556.75. There you go. So then what we would think to ourselves is, number one, maybe we think to ourselves, I don't want to do this again because I already did it up here and called it sum. So instead, let's just make that sum divided by 4. Okay? So that would be the first smart thing. Okay? Another thing that might be smart is to say, I want this to be a double because I want it to get that 0.75. Right? So let's go ahead and run that and see what we get. Now we get 556.0. So that's kind of frustrating. Okay, but let me explain to you what's going on here. When we do arithmetic with integer values, we will only get integer value results. So sum is an integer and it's 2,227. Divide that by 4. And since 4 is an integer, we're going to get just the integer value 556, which we saw earlier. When I try to store 556 into a double, it just says, all right, tack on 0.0, now it's a double. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to say one of these things is going to be a double. And then that'll make the whole result be a double as well. Okay? So yeah, that's actually a good answer. All right? One thing you might think of doing is saying, all right, well, let's make double sum. Okay? And now that fixes this, but if you look back to the expected output, you have no decimal here. Okay? So we don't want 2,227.0. So we really don't want this to be a double. We still want this to be an int. You can change either one of these to a double, and the easiest one is to make this 4.0. Okay? If I make that 4.0, then it says take your sum, divide it by the double 4.0, and you'll get a double answer back. And we run that again, that's the output that we want to get. Okay? There's another thing that you can do, and this is the more kind of confusing one, but we can make this thing, we can make the computer think of sum as a double for just this operation. Okay? And the way you do that is it's called casting. And what you do is you put a set of parentheses in front of the variable, and then you put the type that you want the variable to be. Okay? So I'm going to explain that a little bit better tomorrow, but that will work as well. So what it does is it says, give me the double value of sum, and then divide it by 4. Okay? So we'll do a little bit better job with casting tomorrow. Right now, we're just going to go ahead and say sum divided by 4.0, and that'll work for that.